I could talk all night about Kiwoko because it is very dear to my heart. The Royal Black Institution is very dear to my heart. I have an awful lot of time for them both, and it was like almost a dream come true. It was prayers answered whenever the institution decided to have Kiwoko as its designated charity for 2010. And if you could even better that, it was prayers, I suppose, doubly answered when the institution sent a team out to actually be there to witness, and to witness for our Lord Jesus Christ, because that's what the institution is about. Kiwoko Hospital started 1987, 1988. It started through God's call to Dr. Ian Clark. Ian Clark was a GP in Bangor, Northern Ireland. God called him to go to Africa, and he found himself in the middle of the killing fields of the Luwero Triangle, which had seen approximately 250,000 people slaughtered over the past 4 or 5 years. Ian Clark was so moved by what he experienced there that he returned to Bangor, resigned from his GP practice, and moved with his wife and 3 young children to a derelict farmhouse, which has become their home for the next number of years. Whenever he arrived there, he was the only medical help for 500,000 people, covering an area approximately half the size of the province of Northern Ireland. There was nobody else, no medical facilities, and in fact, there was only 3 buildings in that same geographical area left standing, one of which was St John's Parish Church. On the steps of that church was where Ian Clark performed his first clinic, or set up his first clinic, and he actually performed his first operations on the floor of St John's Parish Church. The night before this was suggested to the committee, I had prayed for some guidance and to help me just say the right things at the committee meeting. And after praying, I stumbled across Dr. Rory Wilson's blog. Dr. Rory Wilson is the Chief Medical Superintendent at Kiwoko Hospital. He told the story of this boy, Ben. Ben suffered not from AIDS, but from a rather ordinary illness, diabetes. His family had gone to the state-run hospital relatively close to their home, but couldn't afford to pay for anything other than the first course of insulin. After 6 months or so without insulin, little Ben's condition rapidly deteriorated, with the result that he was brought to Kiwoko almost blind. The hospital treated him, stabilised his condition, fed him, nourished him, and basically was getting him on the way to recovery. But because of the cataracts in his eyes caused by the diabetes, in the gloom of the evening, he fell off about a 2-foot veranda and fractured his leg. Dr. Rory Wilson was writing this blog, and whilst I was just reading it, you could feel the tears that he must have felt as he was writing that. It moved me tremendously because, as Rory Wilson said, it was a very sad moment to see little Ben fall off that veranda and break his leg. And he tried to put it in context in 2 ways. By saying that if he was in the West, diabetes would be a very manageable disorder, disease that would still allow you pretty much to live a full and normal life. But in Africa, you know, the pain you suffer from that was incredible. Equally, he rounded the argument by saying that whilst what he experienced was very tough and sad, that if he and the hospital hadn't been there, then Ben would have had nothing, and that would have been much, much worse. That moved me tremendously, and I think through God's help, that ended up with the Blacks supporting Kiwoko Hospital in 2010.
I went to Kiwoko simply because I felt that the Lord was asking me to do something. I felt very strong that the Lord had given me the gift of using my hands, and as I prayed for guidance a few months before we went to Kiwoko, this opportunity arose, and I knew that I had to take and jump on this opportunity that had presented itself.
I've been away on teams before and a couple of times to Africa, and when the opportunity came up to go with the Royal Black Institution, it would bring in two things that I feel very close to my heart, one being Africa and one being the institution, because I feel that both of them play a big part in my life, and I thought that getting a chance to go to Africa with the institution would be a great opportunity and probably one that I'll never get to go on again.
One of our senior members of the institution had shown a video about the work that was going on at Kiwoko Hospital. We saw some members of the hospital staff there, doctors and nurses, and we saw some of the children's ward and adults wards, and some of them lacked the very basics. So we decided, to raise the funds to try to help fund the hospital a little bit better, and also to build more accommodation for junior doctors so that they could serve the hospital.
My own church in Ballymoney, St James's Presbyterian Church, held a coffee morning for me, which raised a considerable amount of money, and it was through their generosity that, in fact, the extra funds raised was able to go directly to the charity. So,
well, I had a special birthday back in May last year, and my family decided to have a birthday party for me and invite my family and friends and a lot of the locals. And I didn't want any presents, so we decided if they wanted to give money in lieu of presents, I would give it to a charity, and I chose the Kiwoko Hospital charity. And on that particular night, there was £1,200 raised, and then my church church members knew I was going out, and people on the street had come up and give my wife money and me money when they knew I was going out to Kiwoko, and the total raised from the family, the friends and the church members was £2,700, and I gave that to the charity, and that was to buy drugs and provide treatment for those who could not afford to pay for it. In Uganda, the local authority only pays 8% of the funds. About 30% is paid by people who can afford it. So there's a difference of around 60% has to be made up from charitable donations.
Firstly, the sum raised was tremendous given the economic climate that we're in the West, but that is nothing compared to what rural life is like in Uganda. Whilst Uganda's capital is Kampala, is a metropolis, 95% of the population lives in rural countryside, rural Uganda. They are extremely poor. The average wage is £1 a day, and a qualified nurse earns £80 per month, a surgeon £400 per month. Fuel costs approximately £1 per litre for diesel. So you can just see the effect that £105,000 sterling would have when wages and the cost of living are in those numbers that I've just mentioned to you.
We started off in Belfast, and then from Belfast to London, Heathrow, and then you would wait about a wee bit, and then you would get on a plane and just fly for, I think it was 8 hours to Entebbe in Uganda. And when getting off the plane, you were just like, oh.
When we got off the plane in Entebbe, we had a tarmac road for maybe about 25-30 miles till we arrived in the capital, Kampala. once we left there, it was virtually dirt roads from there to Kiwoko, which is in the Luara district, and the buildings where the people lived in were very, very sparse, and it would reminded you of barns and sheds where you would keep cattle and that. And
most of the work that I would have been doing would have been working on the electrical installation within the hospital. There was an awful lot of repairs needed to be done, and through the programme of works that they had given us, we managed to get everything done. And on top of that, then we got to work on some of the solar panels that they had. They had solar panels that had been sitting about for 3 or 4 years and hadn't got the opportunity or the know-how to install them. So we got the opportunity to do that for them, which is quite satisfying. My work hasn't stopped. I've been in contact with the medical engineer out there, and he's extended his programme of works for the electrical work, and my small part, I'm helping them to organise a few things from the UK. There's a team going out next year in October again, and I've been liaising with them in the hope that they can continue the work that we started.
The hospital has a lot of vehicles, you know, like jeeps and ambulances and small buses and things like that there. And I come from a mechanical engineering background, so I was helping Tommy to fix up the vehicles.
Now, I think the youngest vehicle would have been about 15 years old, so it was from 15 probably up to 20. Some of them needed quite a lot of repairs. Myself and another member of the team, Keith Black, we carried out essential maintenance and repairs to those vehicles. Some of them needed quite a bit. Some of the bodywork on one or two of them were a wee bit bad on them, but essentially they were quite good, strong vehicles, all four-wheel drive vehicles, or most of them were all four-wheel drive, and which you would need out there because of the road conditions.
A very enjoyable task, because you were there, you were getting to interact with the mechanics down in the workshop, especially the head mechanic James, who was a brilliant fella, absolutely brilliant, a real heart of gold, and he was brilliant with us. You know, he really let us get stuck in.
They use the minibuses and the ambulance to transport patients from the bush, which the roads are very, very bad indeed, and they need those type of vehicles to be able to travel in those conditions.
Most of my work was in the wards, so we were meeting people constantly, and it was great to see some of the people come. It was great to see some of the people in the hospital, because you could see what the hospital meant to those people. These were some people that had maybe walked 60, 70 miles, and maybe waited 3 or 4 days to get treated, and you could clearly see the relief and their thankfulness for that hospital being there.
It's a very beautiful country, not the dry, arid imagery that most people expect of a Central African state. Lush green vegetation. Secondly, and far more importantly, is the warmth and the friendship and the love of the people, and the sincerity and the depth of their faith in the Lord Jesus Christ. It was almost entirely Christians that we were working with, and sometimes they put our faith to shame. They don't seem to give up when things are tough, and they don't have a lot, materialistically speaking, but their faith is just, like I said, just put us to shame. And their sheer happiness when they don't appear, when we would look, so those people should be sad rather than happy, but they're not. And they pray to God for stuff they need, and God delivers their prayers. I've seen both this time and 3 years ago specific prayers answered. You know, I'm talking really specific prayers answered, like somebody praying for somebody to turn up that could help with Microsoft Access databases, and 2 of us turn up the next morning when we weren't supposed to be there. I mean, as specific as prayer as that answered.
They have so little in material things in this life, and yet they are so thankful to God for anything they do have. And I think bringing that home I have found that I need to reassess my life and see that the material things in this life mean nothing. And what you do have, being thankful to the Lord for what we do have.
We had brought out quite a lot of clothing. I think there's about 2,500 items of clothing, and I had the privilege of going out to the bush to give some of those clothes out to a family, along with some other members of the team. And while we were there, we had got chatting to one of the ladies who could speak very, very good English, and she told me they had bought a cow about a week previously and had taken sick, and I had a look at it, and we got some vitamins and some sugar and that in it, and the cow was in fairly bad state of health, and it came round a bit, and for the next 4 or 5 days I travelled night and morning and put some vitamins on it, but I really think the cow wasn't going to make it, and that left me very, very sad, because that family, that was a lifeline for them, the milk and that would be produced. And I think the cow, from memory, would have cost about £120 sterling, which would be probably a year's wages for that family. The average earnings over there is about $1 US dollar a day. Well, we did attend services every morning from about 8:15 to 9 o'clock in the local community hall, and that was attended by doctors and nurses and ourselves. There could have been maybe 200 to 250 people there every morning.
We spent about 3/4 of an hour in worship and praise, and it would have been singing all modern choruses and modern hymns that we certainly would know in the UK, and then it would have finished with a little thought for the day. That very much set you up for the day, in the sense that you felt that like this was the day that the Lord had made for us, and anything that we would do that day would certainly be for His glory.
On the Sunday morning that we were there, we each went our separate ways in different groups to go to different churches. Mine was just outside Kiwoko in the jungle. So that was and I had to give the sermon on it, which is a very nerve-wracking experience in a church full of people from Uganda. So, but the people were just so welcoming and so kind to us, and gave us such encouragement when we were there. And it was a real blessing to me, and I'm sure it was a real blessing to everybody else in the team.
But on the Sunday, I went to the local church beside the hospital. I think it was called St. John's, and we had a service at 7:15 in the morning, and that lasted to about 8:30. There was another service about 9 o'clock, and that lasted to 10:30. Then we had another one at 11:15, and that lasted to about 4:15. The bishop was there that day, and he confirmed on 160 young people. So you can imagine, from 7 o'clock in the morning to 4:15 without any water, or very little water, and it was a corrugated iron roof that was on the building, and it was very, very warm indeed.
When we say church, it was very much just a building with a roof, no windows, and a dirt floor and a few benches. So it's not exactly like the churches in the UK, no.
In my own church, I've been a member of Bushmills Presbyterian Church since I was a child. I attended Sunday school and church there, and I'm now a member of Kirk Session. And I think most people didn't realise what the Black Institution did. They didn't realise that we donated money to charities, and I think a lot of the members of the congregation are a lot wiser now about what we do and what our aim is in life.
There's a very lovely verse from Hebrews 11, chapter 1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And you need to believe, you need to trust. If you do let go and trust, then God will deliver. And I've seen that from people in Uganda who don't have the money, the wherewithal, that we seem to have forgotten and tried to replace God with. And when you see those people not only surviving, because we're all too ready to say they exist. Yes, they exist in terms of materialistic terms, but their life is so deep and real and full of joy. I mean, they value friendship. Walking down the street here, we will maybe nod or say hi to somebody and walk on. In Uganda, they take time for relationships. They value relationships far more than getting to a meeting and the clockwork routine that we have generally in the West. And that comes from a real deep-seated trust in God and letting God work out His plan through their lives. Without that trust in God, their society would fall to bits. And it is wonderful just to not only see it, but to live among them for 2.5 weeks and share it with them, taste it, if you like, be there, experience it. And it does touch you. You can't come away from Kiwoko in particular unaffected. Quoting the Reverend Foster, who said, Kiwoko gets onto your skin, and it certainly does. The reason why it gets onto your skin is because God is very active and very real, and you know He's there. You can see His presence, you can see the work that He does there. I mean, it's only 25 years ago since these guys came out of a civil war. They had nothing. And now they have a 240-bed hospital, 8 wards, on a size and scale that's comparable with the Cosby Hospital on the north coast in the province here.